Today's notes are about taxonomy, which is the study of classification. So we're going to define what taxonomy is. We're going to look at and understand why a standardized classification system is necessary, and then we'll look at how we classify organisms in the world. So it is important to have a universal system of classification because, for one thing, it allows scientists worldwide to communicate with each other and know that they're talking about the same organism. Also, think for a minute about how difficult it might be to identify everything by common name when common names vary from place to place, and sometimes the same organism has the same common name, has several different common names, or several different organisms have the same common name. It can be very confusing if you don't know where you're coming from. So a method of classifying and naming things is really important. The earliest system of classification that was widely used was one that was devised by Aristotle when he classified animals by the way they moved, whether they swam, flew, or walked, and that worked fine as far as he knew. But now we know that birds and mosquitoes and bats, all of which fly, are very, very different animals. And so about 250 to 300 years ago, a Swedish botanist named Carl Linnaeus came up with a system that is a hierarchical classification system that is still in use today with modifications. The system is called binomial nomenclature. That's because every organism has a two-part scientific name. Binomial nomenclature means a two-name naming system. So we're identified by a genus name and a species name. An example is Homo sapiens, which is the species name for humans. The genus is Homo, which means man, and the species is sapiens, which means wise. And so the important thing is to know how to write this correctly and how to read it correctly. When you see a species name like this, the first word, the genus name, is capitalized. The species name is not capitalized. The two things together are the name of the species. They need to be either underlined if you're writing or in italics if you're typing. Remember, always capitalize that first letter in the genus name, like in Homo. An important thing to point out here is that the word homo here, which means man, is not the same thing as the prefix homo, which means the same. The prefix homo comes from Greek. The word homo comes from Latin. And so there's different words with different meanings, but they sound alike and are spelled alike. So let's look at an example. Here's a Bengal tiger, okay? There are a number of different kinds of tigers. There's Siberian tigers and so forth. And all tigers are Panthera tigris, but there's a subspecies, which is specific to the Bengal tiger, called Panthera tigris. And it was named by Linnaeus, and so we put the name of the scientist after the scientific name. The common name is Bengal tiger. Okay, so let's look at it a little more detailed. Okay, so the scientific name is Panthera tigris. If there is a subspecies, we put the subspecies after that. And if we know the scientist who named it, we put the scientist's name in parentheses at the end. If you're doing a scholarly publication and you refer to it by its complete name at the beginning, later in your publication you can abbreviate it P. tigris. This is what we do with a lot of things. For instance, E. coli that you know about really stands for Escherichia coli, which is the genus name of the bacterium, but it's more commonly known as E. coli because we just abbreviate the name because it's hard to spell and hard to say. So here we have Linnaeus' system. We're going to walk through the classification of a grizzly bear. Okay, Linnaeus' system has 7 levels: a kingdom, a phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So we're going to look first of all at kingdom Animalia. All of the organisms shown here are animals. Okay, and they all belong to kingdom Animalia. We could put other things in here like mosquitoes and squid and earthworms and things like that, but we just have these 7 that are chosen here. So the largest level is a kingdom, and it's things like animals, plants, protista, fungi, things like that. If we're going to narrow it down a little bit, we could go to the next level, which is the phylum. A phylum is a smaller group than a kingdom, and it contains organisms that all share some very important characteristics. In the case of phylum Chordata, some of the important characteristics include having a backbone and spinal column. And so when we look at the little animals up here, the only one that doesn't have a backbone and a spinal column is the sea star, so it would not belong to phylum Chordata, but all the others would. because they all have backbones and spinal columns. The next level down is a class. A class is a group of organisms smaller than a phylum whose members share certain characteristics. So when we talk about class Mammalia, all the mammals have hair and feed their young with milk. Well, snakes don't have hair and they don't feed their young with milk, so we have to rule them out of class Mammalia. We know they're reptiles, and so class Mammalia will include the three types of bear here and the fox and the squirrel. Next, we have an order. The order is an even smaller category that includes organisms that share certain characteristics. In the case of carnivora, it used to have more to do with the teeth, with what they ate, but now we talk more about the shape of their teeth and their ancestry. And so all of these are classified in order Carnivora. Yes, bears in general are omnivorous. But they're in order Carnivora because of the shape of their skull and their teeth. And so we have here the grizzly bear, the black bear, the panda, and the fox. All right, next we have the next smaller group, which is a family, an even more exclusive group. The family Ursidae includes the three kinds of bears. The fox doesn't belong to family Ursidae. It's not a bear. It's a fox, and it belongs to family Canidae, which is the dogs. All right, then we come down to the next level. That's the genus. It's even more specific than the family. And the black bear and the grizzly bear are both belong to genus Ursus. The panda bear belongs to a different genus. And then finally, down to the specific species, we have Ursus arctos, which is the grizzly bear. So we've gone all the way from a kingdom through the phylum, class, order, family, genus, and all the way down to the species to name this organism. Now, since Linnaeus' time, scientists have found it necessary, because of an understanding now of biochemistry and ultramicroscopy of organisms, that there's a need for an even larger group than a kingdom, and that's called a domain. And so we'll talk about the domains in just a minute. Let's look at the classification of man, with the complete classification of man, using Linnaeus' system plus the domain. So here we have the domain Eukarya. That means that we're eukaryotes. Then the kingdom Animalia, we're animals, not plants, fungi, or protista. We belong to phylum Chordata because we do have a spinal cord and a backbone. We belong to class Mammalia because we are mammals with hair and milk. The order we belong to is Primates, which we share with apes and monkeys. The family is Hominidae. We're the only current members of family Hominidae, although there have been ancestral species that were fit in this family. The genus is Homo, and the species is Sapiens. So when you say what's the species name of humans, you say both the genus and species, and that's Homo sapiens or H as Sapiens. Now you need to remember all these categories from largest to smallest and know which ones contain which. It's not always easy to remember things in order unless you have some kind of mnemonic device to remember. And so a really good sentence is, Dear King Philip came over for great steak. You can come up with your own sentence if you want to. That's fine. You don't have to use a sentence if that works better for you to do something else. But you do need to know these in order from largest to smallest, smallest to largest, and know which and one includes which.